Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be exploring BITFARMS once again, but we're going to be talking more about the price activity of these Bitcoin mining companies that have now pivoted towards artificial intelligence infrastructure. Now, generally speaking, I am very bullish on these companies and very bullish on the infrastructure plays, right? The picks and the shovels to the gold rush, and the gold rush is AI. But AI companies have not figured out how to make money yet, number one. Number two, they have an ever advancing challenge of continuing to compete with their competitors and build the software. But there is a supply and demand imbalance in the energy, in the infrastructure, in the bandwidth, in the data centers that create all of this back end to bring the front end of the AI, large language models, or AGI, to life. And so in today's video, we're going to be exploring BITFARMS as well as some of the other Bitcoin mining companies that have pivoted to AI infrastructure to understand, are we due for a pullback? Are we due for a dip? Or has the bull run just begun? This is the Cryptoviser podcast. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We upload every single day of the year to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Sometimes we talk about the macro environment, zoomed out, talking about everything, different sectors in the economy, and try to tie it all together. And sometimes we do deep dives like we're doing today into individual categories, stocks, cryptos, or sectors of the economy to understand a little bit more and understand what is right for our portfolios and from an investment standpoint. Let's get right into today's video. Now, as you guys know, we have been talking about BITFARMS well over a year on this channel, okay? I didn't really put BITFARMS in the title of many of my videos from 2024 and 2023, but we've been talking about that because BITFARMS was the most undervalued. What we started to see with BITFARMS in 2024, this is really what kind of changed my viewpoint on BITFARMS. When Riot Platforms, one of the competing Bitcoin mining companies, tried to purchase BITFARMS for about $2.30 in 2024. And BITFARMS was like, no, you're not buying our company. And then the stock price went under $2.30 and basically stayed there until just recently at the end of 2025. And to me, that said, like Riot owned 20% of the company and BITFARMS was still fighting Riot Platforms. And so to me, it said, okay, Riot wants what BITFARMS has. Why is that? But the other thing is the fact that BITFARMS was fighting them so hard to not get into the company. I think they even changed the rules of the company so that they can't get more shares than they had. It was like 20% of the company. And the stock price kept going down, and they're fighting them at a lower price than they were offered for the stock. And part of me was starting to get a little bearish on the company because I was like, the stock keeps going down. And if Riot wants to get out of BITFARMS, they have to start selling their shares, which is going to push the price even further down. What are we going to do about this? Well, once they started to make the pivot to AI, which I knew that they were doing. We talked about this a little bit earlier in 2025 when they sold their business in South America. They purchased one of their data centers or their sites in the US. And remember, BITFARMS was a Canadian company. They still are a Canadian company. But it told me that they were probably gearing up to come towards the United States. And to do that, they had to start building, offloading their out of US infrastructure and start onboarding more US-based infrastructure. And so I took a huge risk in my portfolio and put probably the largest position I've ever held in any asset, maybe besides crypto, into BITFARMS. And I bought high, I bought low, I bought before the Riot Platforms deal, after the Riot Platforms deal, didn't go through. And then we started to see selling in the middle of the year, massive selling, down to about 68 cents was the low in 2025. And I was nervous around there. I was very nervous. I bought because I figured we're probably going to go a little bit higher and then I could sell and at least take some profit out of the stock. But I still held onto a majority of the position as probably one of the biggest trades I've ever made based on what I was seeing with the AI infrastructure play. And then we started to see a lot more from BitFarms, from their CEO, about what they were going to be doing with AI, and that they were effectively, they made the announcement towards the second half of 2025 that they were doing a complete pivot towards AI infrastructure. They were still going to have their big Bitcoin mining operations for cash flow and to diversify their own portfolio of products, but that they were pivoting to AI because AI demand for the infrastructure, for the energy is so high. And BitFarms, being at the time in the middle of the year, it was valued at under $500 million when most of their competitors were worth well over $1 billion. It told me there was a huge offset. And that's when we really started to ramp up the coverage of BitFarms. I mean, you can even look in the middle of the year. We tagged, I think I posted on my YouTube page, go to youtube.com/the Cryptoviser, or just click on my logo down below. Hold your ears for a second. Click on the posts tab, and you can see right here, April 5th, I posted Crypto Millionaires, BitFarms goes full AI. And this is when the company made the announcement that they were basically pivoting to AI. And this was before a lot of the other companies, a lot of the competitors were making that announcement. And they also made the announcement that they were going to do stock buybacks. And the reason they were doing stock buybacks was because they needed to offset some of the selling from Riot Platforms. Again, what we were talking about. So once Riot Platforms started to offload their position in BitFarms, I was like, okay, something is going on here. And then they made the pivot to AI. And I'm like, Riot is so stupid, right? They should have held on to those shares because now Riot Platforms literally sold the bottom. Literally. And now here we are. Basically 10x. I mean, from when I'm recording this video in the end stages of October 2025, the price of the stock went to $6.50, which basically is 10 times the bottom of 68 cents in just 6 months. But are we due for a pullback? That's the question of today's video. Now, if you watch my videos on a regular basis, you kind of know my thesis about the market. It's never a bad time to take profits out of the market. Ever, ever, ever. Don't let anybody tell you when you take profits that you're making a bad decision, you're going to regret it. Don't look back, take your profits and move on because you don't know what the future holds. There is a huge conversation right now about these quantum computing companies like Ionic, which is worth $25 billion. QBTS or D-Wave, it's worth $15 billion. These companies have like $2 million of revenue every quarter and hundreds of millions of dollars of losses every quarter. And even their CEO recently at a conference basically said, the CEO of Rigetti, by the way, which is worth $17 billion, said that they're like 10 years out from any viable product. And so these companies are worth literal multiples of what BitFarms is worth, and most of these Bitcoin pivot companies to AI, and they have no sales, no product, no real demand from a business perspective, so no revenue potential. But meanwhile, these Bitcoin companies that pivoted to AI like BitFarms, they have energy infrastructure, they have data center capabilities, which all of these AI front-end large language models or AGI models need. And so the demand-supply imbalance is there. But that doesn't mean that they're immune to corrections. This doesn't mean that these companies are immune from macro market flash crashes. What we just saw at the beginning of October was crypto had a quote-unquote flash crash. And to me, that's a warning because all of crypto was affected. Even cryptos that nothing really changed from one day to the next. But what it showed was that there was a lot of betting on derivatives, right? Which is leveraged plays, options, margin, perpetual futures. These are all leveraged plays, paper crypto. But the same thing happens in the stock market. And so if these AI companies, which everybody believes is in a bubble, and the bubble in a psychology of market charts is up here, what happens after the bubble? You get a pop. That doesn't mean that the value of the company went away. That doesn't mean that the product or the business went away. It just means that you got a little bit overheated, and you correct to the upside in a bubble, and then after the bubble, you correct to the downside. And usually these swings are very sharp. And so that leads to the question, is it time for a correction? Are we due for a pullback in BITFARMS? Now, I'm on both sides of this, right? Because part of me believes yes, not just BITFARMS. I mean, look at Iris Energy. Iris Energy is up, 8,000-9,000%, 10x, just in the last 6 months. Cypher Mining, basically the same thing, 700-800% up. TeraWolf, almost basically the same thing. I mean, we're at $2 and now we're up 7x, right? Just in 6 months. And so there has been a lot of money getting put in. And so whenever you see this kind of thing, these major moves to the upside, when I look at the psychology of market charts, it doesn't matter whether we're in the thrill phase or the euphoria phase. We're towards the top, right? We're beyond the profit taking that most people would do, right? Where most people would probably take if they doubled their position. And so when I'm seeing these kind of moves, it tells me there's a lot of speculation. And speculation means leverage, margin, options, perpetuals, paper stocks. And whenever you have that, that's where you see major corrections to the downside, because you get liquidations, right? If the price goes down 10% and people are leveraged up the wazoo, well, they're going to get liquidated. They get liquidated, then they sell at market. Market pushes the price down, more liquidations, more market orders, more liquidations, more market orders. And effectively, you can go almost to zero. Not really in the stock market, but in crypto, you can. And we saw that happen in the October flash crash. And so on one part of me is like, yes, we are due for a correction in these cryptos, in the quantum computing stocks, in the Bitcoin mining companies. I mean, we've already seen corrections in a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies. Look at Strive, ASST, which is purchasing Semler Scientific, another Bitcoin treasury company, down 90%. Look at Nakamoto, Bitcoin treasury company, down 97% in 6 months. Metaplanet, since June, down 77%. So we're already seeing corrections occurring, and it's not just in crypto. If you look at other areas of the of the stock market as well, look at Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat was like $200 just a few years ago. Look at where it is today. Just in the last 1 year, it's down 90%. Krispy Kreme, last 1 year, it's down 70%, right? So there's a lot of areas of the economy that are already in bear markets. And we don't know when that's going to occur. We don't know how that's going to occur. We don't know how quickly it's going to occur. All we know is what we have in front of us, which is, for most people, profits. And you can see even up here, right, that you have these sharp moves, 15% drop from this top. When you start seeing these kind of sharp moves over the course of 1, 2, 3 days in stocks, it's typically a warning. Now, the warning could be that we're going to go much higher, or it could be that we're going to go much lower. We're also seeing a race, right? BitFarms, as well as the other Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI, are racing to raise money to accelerate their expansion into AI because the demand is so high, and they're trying to beat the supply catching up to the demand. Because when the demand is high and the supply is low, you can charge whatever you want, and you're in control. Once the supply is higher than the demand, or it's equal, there's all these other companies that you could choose from. And then that's where competition comes, prices come down, and things become more normalized. And so just recently, we saw BitFarms announcing a proposed offering of $300 million of convertible notes. Now, there is a dilution aspect to this that I think, and many other experts think, is going to get priced into the stock. Now, in an uptrending stock, even if you have a dilution event, it could still push the stock higher because you still have the demand for the stock increasing, the liquidity and the volume increasing. I mean, BitFarms, along with many of the other Bitcoin mining to AI stocks, have been very high volume on the high volume charts across the entire stock market. They're the most highest volume recently in October. But as we've seen with like, let's say MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy has been diluting the last, I mean, literally last 5 years, but even in the last year or so, they've been diluting by selling shares in the open market and buying Bitcoin. So the reason that the stock price went up during this was because Bitcoin price was going up. The narrative around Bitcoin and crypto was going up, and the treasury companies were going up. It was the first one. They had the most Bitcoin. And so because they had all of that volume flowing into MicroStrategy, they were able to go in the market and effectively dilute the shareholders and keep the price going higher. But what have we been seeing more recently in 2025? That play is no longer viable, right? We've been seeing basically sideways trading and downward trending in the second half of 2025. And so that play can work for a certain amount of time, but then it's over. The trade is gone. And I still think that we're in the early innings of these AI plays and the AI infrastructure, but that doesn't mean that we're not due for a correction. And that's what this video is about. It's just about putting some caution in the market. I do think in the medium term, and I'm talking about short term, like within the next 3 to 5 months, but I believe the year to 2 year time frame from now, it's still very bullish. It's uptrending because they have what other companies need. They have the data centers. They have the energy pipeline. They have the bandwidth and fiber connections. They have all of this. And so I anticipate that we're going to get announcements from BitFarms. Maybe by the time you're watching this video, there's already another announcement of a deal for BitFarms infrastructure from one of these large companies. That's very possible. And that could continue to push the price up. But at some point, typically around this 10x standpoint, you start to see profit taking. And that is the caution. Because once the profit taking occurs, we could revisit $1. We could revisit $2. We may even revisit 68 cents. I highly doubt that we will in the near term, but it's a possibility, right? On this channel, we look at all the possibilities in the market. We don't look at what I want to happen. I typically look at what I don't want to happen. That way I know, okay, if we go to 68 cents, again, what am I going to do? I'm going to buy, right? I'm going to buy, unless there's some macro event that obliterates AI, which I don't think is going to occur. But this is going to continue to grow. And I think BitFarms is on the right path. I think Iris Energy is on the right path. I think Cypher Mining is on the right path. It just matters if they stay on that path and if they get the clientele and the contracts that they need to continue to advance and grow. And right now it's a race between all of these companies. But all of the companies have been putting on billions of dollars of valuation. And I think it's called for. I think that they deserve it. I think that they should be valued at well over $10 billion at a minimum. But in the short term, we should expect volatility. And that volatility is a gift. Because if we do pull back, we can buy more. If we do go higher, we can take more profits. So it doesn't matter whichever way this goes. We know what the trend is. And I don't think that the infrastructure plays are at risk of bubble pop collapse. Now, the quantum companies like Ionic, they don't have a product. So they are, right? And if the bubbles pop, they're going to $1 again. Rigetti, going back to $1 if the bubble pops. Because these companies, their only product is what their product is. And if they don't have a product, this is overvalued, right? But we know that BitFarms has infrastructure. We know that they have multiple business lines. Like even if the AI is a bubble and it doesn't work out, they can pivot back to Bitcoin mining. And even in a bear market, when all of the others are focused still on AI, they could pivot to Bitcoin mining and still make money. And BitFarms is going to continue to make money on their Bitcoin mining operation. They're not expanding their Bitcoin mining operation, but they're also not drawing it down. So they're just keeping it what it is. That's the big difference between, let's say, an OpenAI and BitFarms. OpenAI is not making money, and they have to keep spending exorbitant amounts of money to keep their operation going. BitFarms, they just have it. And whether it's for AI or Bitcoin mining, there's a business line that they can make money on. So short-term corrections, I do think we're due for them, not just with BitFarms, for all of these companies. When it's going to occur, that's a whole different story. I don't know. Maybe it's going to happen November, December, January, February, March, June, September, December of next year. I don't know. But I do think that we will be due for a correction. So be ready for it, right? Be ready for it. Understand that we're not going to go straight up. I mean, we've already corrected. People are going to come on the channel and say, Cryptoviser, we're not having any correction in BitFarms. How dare you say that? Well, we already did 16% in one day. I mean, that's a pretty big correction if you ask me. And I think that we're going to continue to see that, right? Because the money's flowing in, then it's going to pause for a little bit. Maybe the price will come down. Maybe there'll be some profit taking. Then we'll see more money coming in as more announcements, more deals take place in the whole ecosystem space. But expect corrections, expect pullbacks. These are going to be bullish over the long term. And don't be afraid to take profits, because if you understand we are going to have corrections and you take profits and then we have a correction, now you can buy 20% lower and still have money on the side. Now you can buy 40% lower and still have money on the side. I mean, there's people who didn't buy at 68 cents or $2 or $3 that would love to buy at $3. But if we dip to $3, are they going to buy it, or are they going to be in panic mode and say, oh, I can't buy, I'm going to wait till it goes down even further? This is about creating a thesis, creating a strategy for the markets. And maybe you won't re-enter. Sometimes there's investors that when they take profits out, they don't re-enter a position for a certain amount of time, 6 months, 1 year, 3 months, just to kind of see where the stock goes. Because sometimes corrections look like they're just, oh, this is just a quick dip. But maybe the dip is going to keep dipping a little bit longer, right? Maybe there's going to be more profit taking, more panic selling, more liquidations in the paper side of things, in the derivative markets. And that will impact the price of the stock. And so all of these things we have to take into play, not just with BitFarms, with Iris Energy, Cypher Mining, TeraWulf, and so on. I mean, TeraWulf, I think people should be the most bullish on. It's under $10 billion, and Google owns 15% of the company. Meanwhile, Riot Platforms is exiting BitFarms, which has basically better infrastructure than TeraWulf, instead of holding on to it until we get a deal. Because I definitely think a deal with these AI companies is coming for BitFarms. It's coming with Iris, coming for Cypher Mining. More are coming for TeraWulf. That's kind of the route that we're seeing. They need the power, they need the infrastructure, and these companies have what they need. So they're all going to get deals, in my view. Maybe not, but that's my thesis. Let me know what you guys think and what your thesis on these markets are. Do you think BitFarms is due for a pullback? And what is your price targets to the upside and to the downside for not just BitFarms, but all of these AI mining companies? Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss a new video. We upload every single day. Go check out that video from April where we called BitFarms going full AI. You can find that video right here on my channel. Click on the posts tab, and it should be one of the first few at the top. See you guys in the next video. Crypto on.